Okay, we're continuing with the ASEC interdisciplinary material notes. We're doing mathematics section. We reached the section of division. So we were just saying how when you divide, you may have you may divide evenly, so you do not have a remainder. Again, when you divide, you have a dividend, which is like the number you're dividing. The divisor is the number you're dividing by, and the quotient is the answer. So 35 divided by 5 is 7. So 35 is the dividend, the divisor is 5, and 7 is the quotient or the answer. When you're doing like long division, like 258 divided by 6, for example, coincidentally, that's going to end in a remainder of 0 because it divides evenly, and you get an answer of 43. The way you do the long division is you use the fewest digits in the dividend that are still larger than the divisor. So if you have 258, you're going to use the first two digits, 25, which is larger than 6. So 6 divides 4 times into 25. So you get 24, remainder 1. Then you're dropping down the next digit, which is 8. And then you get 18. So then you divide 6 into 18 3 times. So you have 0 remainder. 18 minus 18 is 0. Then the answer is evenly 43. You basically guess or estimate how many times the divisor divides into the first digits of the dividend that are still larger than the divisor, etc. If the answer is no remainder, then you stop. You know there are no more dividends to bring down. So, okay, hope that makes sense. That's how you do it long ways if you're not going to use a calculator. So you subtract the number under the dividend from the part of the dividend that you used. And you should never get anything larger than the divisor, obviously, or else you guess wrong. You must then you must multiply by a number larger. You should also not subtract a bigger number than you need. You should never get negative after you subtract. So just use your common sense when you estimate how many times one number goes to another number. And then you always bring the next digit of the dividend straight down, and you divide by the new dividend, by the divisor. Summary: dividing the divisor into the first digit of the dividend. If the first digit is too small, if it's smaller value than the divisor, you look at the first two digits instead. Then you multiply the divisor by the number of times that it will fit into the digits you choose. So you place that product under the first digits of the dividend that you used. You subtract the number under the dividend. So from those two digits you chose, subtract the values, repeat the previous steps until all the digits in the dividend are brought down. Next section is rules of dividing decimals. When you divide a decimal number by a whole number, line up the problem the same as when dividing whole numbers. Bring the decimal point up into the answer exactly above where it is in the problem. So you have the line with long division. So you would just, if you're dividing by a whole number, the decimal point, you just bring it up over the divisor line, exactly the same place that it is in the dividend.
Dividend?
When you divide a whole number by a decimal number, you change the decimal number to a whole number by moving the decimal point to the right, and you move the same number of places to the right in the dividend um, by adding zeros, and then you insert the decimal point. Okay, this is one example. So whole number 1, for example, over a decimal number 0.2 equals, so you're going to change the decimal number to a whole number by moving the decimal point to the right. So the 0.2 is going to become 2, and then you have to multiply the numerator by the same number of zeros. So you multiply it by 10, so the 1 is going to become 10. So it's going to be 10 over 2 equals, you simplify it to 5 is the answer. That's the example for that. When you divide a decimal number by a decimal number, change the decimal numbers to whole numbers by moving the decimal points to the right. Same way, so move the decimal and the dividend, same number of places to the right as the divisor. Add zeros if needed, and then insert the decimal point if needed. Let's see. So an example for this would be 0.5 over 0.25 are both decimal numbers. So the numerator 0.25 we'd be, I did it. Okay. So 2 places, moving the decimal on the bottom gives you 25. On top 2 places gives you 50. That doesn't make sense. Hold on. So it's going to be 50 in the numerator and 25 in the denominator, because you're adding 2 zeros or 2 spaces to the right of the decimal point. So it's going to be 50 over 25, which equals 2, or 2 over 1 equals 2. Next section is fractions. Fractions. So how to change fractions to mixed numbers. A mixed number is a number that has both a whole number and a fraction in it. When the numerator is larger than the denominator, you can change this fraction to a mixed number. So an unsimplified fraction can be changed to a mixed number. I'm sorry, not an unsimplified. That was wrong. Never forget that. And the denominator is always going to stay the same. So unless if it wasn't reduced in the first place and you had to simplify it first or reduce it first. But if it's already in simplest form, for example, 5 over 2, so the only requirement for making a mixed number is that the denominator is smaller than the numerator. The numerator is larger than the denominator. So 5 over 2 can be changed to a mixed number. And the way you do this is your 5 is going to be the dividend. So the numerator is the dividend. The denominator is going to be the divisor, so the 2. So 5, and then you divide by 2, and you get 2 with a remainder of 1, and the numerator is still going to be 2 since you started off with a simplified fraction, and your answer is going to be 2 is the whole number plus 1, which is the remainder, over 2, which is the same numerator that we started out with. So 2 and a half. 5 over 2 equals 2 and 1 half. 1 over 2. That's one example. One more example. If you start out with like 11 over 2, so you divide 11 divided by 2. So this goes 2 into 11 goes 5 times. You get a so 10 would be the answer. You get 1 remainder. So the answer is 5 is the whole number, and you get 1 is the remainder over, again, 2, because 2 was your denominator again. So 11 over 2 equals 5 and 1 half. 14 over 4, you simplify, and you do the same thing. You get 3 and a half. as your result.